How do you populate your databases with the data you need for development or testing? Traditionally, we used to harness libraries such as Bogus or NBuilder to create dummy data for our databases. But now we have a new trick up our sleeve: AI. In this video, I will show you how you can harness the power of AI tools to write code that generates wonderful data for your databases. Data that remain under your full control, so you can cause corner cases or whatever you want to prove in development or in testing. There will be a lot of code in this demo, so let's get to the application right away. I will first show you what the application looks like. I have signed in as the user. I can click this link to manage companies, and the page is empty. I might need some specific company. I could create it manually, but no, that's not what I want. I will cancel this. I want my development database to be pre-populated with useful data just for the case I'm working on. What shall I do? This is the source code. I already have the code to seed the database. This method that drops the database recreates the database from script. And then comes the creation of test users and roles and the creation of test companies. Well, this last method is empty. I want to implement it now. And that brings us to the field of generating data. Let me show you an empty class, company name generator. We'll spend most of the remaining time in this class. This is the class I want to implement. It should give me many, like millions, of different meaningful company names which I can include in other classes that generate the rest of the model, and then insert all that into the database to create a valid set of objects on which I can cause any situation I need in development. That is very important. So I want to use an AI tool to help me generate meaningful company names. I will start by defining the company name format. It will start with an adjective, a space and a noun, followed by an optional company type, also separated by a space. Let me give you a few example names so you will see what I want to create. AI generated Troglodytes Incorporated. Another example, Advanced Velociraptors LLC. And one with the missing company type, Working AI. These are the examples. I want data like these in my database. I will use GitHub Copilot to help me with this. You can use any tool you normally use at work. This will be the array of strings representing the examples of adjectives. And Copilot is jumping in already, making some suggestions. You see, it's very useful. I have a better idea. I will ask it very specifically to help me with this. Populate the array with 300 different adjectives. Place 10 adjectives per line of code. That's it. A minute later, the adjectives will be there. If you read them, you will see they really make sense, like happy, growing, imperial, light, logical, etc. These adjectives make sense. I want to see them in my database. I'm accepting this, of course. The same thing with the nouns. I will ask it again, populate the array with 500 unique nouns. Write 10 nouns per line of code. While it's working, you see what I'm doing. 300 adjectives times 500 nouns, that is 150,000 distinct combinations. I can generate tons of company names this way. The array is there. It looks wonderful. The company type, let me help Copilot with the idea, incorporated. And yes, it's catching up. Accepting this. Okay, this is enough. Let me limit it to what? 14 distinct strings. And now I remember that the company type is also optional. Let me model that by appending an empty string. Every once in a while, the company type will be missing. If you want to make it more frequent, add a couple of empty strings. Now, the proportion of the empty strings and non-empty ones in this array defines how often the company type will be missing in the company name defined or generated using this class. This is how you create the raw data. There is that old rule that you should be able to say everything over the phone. If you are discussing a bug with your colleagues, you would pick up the phone or enter a Zoom meeting and tell them, hey, there is a bug. And they ask, Mo, can you reproduce it? Yes, I can reproduce it. Pick the Green Rabbits Incorporated. Press the button and it will fail. You see, I said it. And that is why all this effort. So we come to the code that will use these strings. The createNext method will pick instances of these strings and combine them. It will need to act randomly. So I'm defining the random number generator. And now comes the important part. You should allow the user of this class to see the random number generator. Every use of this class should follow the same sequence of random numbers so that you always create the same data in the database. That is very important because now me and you and the QA department, everybody will see the same data in their databases. And then we can exchange information saying there is an issue here or there is a feature that applies to this object, and that object will exist in every database. Anyway, the implementation is straightforward. Pick a random adjective, pick a random noun, pick a random company type, join them separated by spaces, trim excess spaces at the ends, and that's it. And then comes the public method that will return a sequence of strings. The simplest implementation would just call the createNext and return that in a loop. This creates an endless sequence of meaningful strings that you can use as company names in your software. That will also include duplicates. If duplicates are an issue, you can come up with a more complicated solution, pass them through the hash set, create a string, check whether it was already seen, and only if not, return it from the loop. This loop will generate unique company names. Still, it will jam at the end after all the strings are exhausted already, calculate the total number of adjectives, nouns, company types, multiply them, and this is the number of strings that the loop can theoretically generate. As you create more and more strings, less and less unused strings will remain. You better stop at, for example, 80% of the theoretical limit. Check whether the generated count is below this limit, and if so, keep going. Once you reach 80% of all the strings that can be created from those candidate words, simply quit. This is the most complicated form of a unique string generator you will ever write. It's very simple, as you can see. It fits 15 lines of code. And in my case, it generates 300 adjectives by 500 nouns by 15 company types. That is more than 2 million. I have calculated 80% of that is 1.8 million distinct strings. You can cover all kinds of stress tests. Maybe you need even more. Add the fourth component to the string, give it 100 possible values, and you will have hundreds of millions of rows in your database in no time. So let me show you what is the result of all this. I will run the command line tool that resets the database. Yes, it dropped the database, recreated the database from scripts, created a couple of users, and then it goes, there are the companies. All kinds of them are there. I will show you what the page looks like now. I'm logging in as user 1, going to that page, and there are the companies. Let me sign out, sign in as user 2, different user, click on that link again, and completely different companies associated with user 2. So you can check all the features of the application using these dummy data, but they don't look dummy at all. Everything on this screen makes sense, and again, if there is a bug, you will just call your friend, your colleague, and tell, check this company with the name that is pronounceable, that is meaningful, you can even remember it, you will remember it tomorrow when you come back to work. These data make sense. A very important aspect of doing things in this way, again, is that the database will always look the same whenever I run that tool that recreates it. I'm using this method in my projects, and I have nothing to complain about.